All right, we're going to get started with our Bible class. We are in Genesis chapter 10. And we're getting into a section of this book that I think poses an interesting question, and I just kind of want to hear what you think of. We know that, whether you want to call it historically or geographically, however you want to, whatever area you want to classify this question into, why are Asian people from Asia? And why are black people from Africa? And why are light-skinned people from Europe? If you get my gist, right? We understand nowadays, right? Like, people are everywhere, and you can see a black person over in China, and you can see an Asian person down in Africa, and over here in the United States, it's a grab bag everywhere you go. But these different ethnic groups are, up until mass travel became a thing, everyone kind of just stayed in their region. Why is that? Rod, you have your hand.
Well, basically, it was a lot more difficult to travel in the past. You didn't have, until we got the horse and buggy, that was about you could decide no horse or walking there. So, people got in geological areas and they just stayed there. And certain traits were brought to the area by the people that settled there.
Sure. Jerry?
I think there were a lot more tribes and family groups that congregated in areas that never left.
Yeah, people became very tribal, right? And for it's kind of strange for us to think about because nowadays it's just the norm of, all right, you either you go to college and get your degree, and then that kind of where's the job? Oh, it's in this state. I've never been to that state, and that's not a deterrent it kind of is, but it's it's not odd for someone to move across the country to take a job, or to follow, whether it's their own family or if they just feel like, hey, I just we visited Florida and I just want to live there now. That's not odd for us, but back in these days, right? It was you pretty much just stayed put. This is my family. I really have no need to go other places, whether it's for safety, right? Because that could be a thing of my people are from here, and I can't just say, oh, I'm going to go live in this country now because they'll just kill me. And so, Phil, did you have your hand?
Yeah. I think.
What do you think?
If you read it, I don't remember what chapter it is, but before the Tower of Babel, everyone was of the same language, and I believe that's when all the different ethnic groups started.
Yeah. Well, we're going to read about this today. In chapter 10 is it's a big genealogy. Okay, and I could take the easy route and just say these people and go read it on your own time. But I've taken the easy way out my entire preaching career. And so I thought today we're going to read it. Okay? And if I mispronounce one of these names, just keep it to yourself. Okay? I don't need to hear that. All right, I'm up here doing my best. But we're going to go through this little section at a time here and try to give some information about who these people are and what these names mean. There will be no slides today. It's just going to be this on repeat because I did take the easy way out with my slides. I didn't want to rewrite all of these names and stuff like that. So you just have to listen to me today of what I'm going to say. Verses 1 through 5 of chapter 10 in the book of Genesis, it says this: These are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Sons were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these, the coastland people spread in their lands, each with his own language, by their clans and in their nations. This is exactly what Phil was just alluding to, and we're going to see more of this as we continue on in this chapter, in both chapters 10 and 11, of like these were, it says, they spread in their lands, verse 5, each with his own language, by their clans in their nations. See, all of these, again, we need to remember, like there's been a big reset that has happened, we call the flood. And now all of these nations of the world, some of them might be familiar. Like some of these names that I read, you might go, oh, I've heard that somewhere. Or like, isn't that in the Bible somewhere? Because these are the fathers then, are going to be fathers of these different nations. Remember, when we see that phrase, these are the generations, that is one of our toledotes that we talked about in our introduction, that this is this is how the book of Genesis is divided up. Anytime we have these genealogies or it talks about generations, we are entering into a different time, a different age in the book of Genesis. And here we are getting the sons of Japheth. From the son of Japheth came the Germanic peoples, from whom came most of the original peoples of Western Europe. These include the original French, the Spanish, and Celtic settlers. Magog, Tubal, and Meshech, these settled in the far north of Europe and became the Russian peoples. Madai, from this son of Japheth came the ancient Medes, and they populated what is now Iran and Iraq. The peoples of India also came from this branch of Japheth's family. Javan or Javan, from this son of Japheth came the ancient Greeks. Ashkenaz, from this son of Gomer came the peoples who settled of Judea into what we now call the Fertile Crescent. Togarmah, from this son of Gomer came the Armenians. These divisions of mankind developed into language, genetic, and ethnic divisions, it says. Let's continue on. So far, so good, but it's going to get a little dicey the further we get into this. Verses 6 through 14. It says, the sons of Ham, Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteca. The sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went into Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth-er, Calah, and Rezin, between Nineveh and Calah, that is the great city. Egypt fathered Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, from whom the Philistines came, and Caphtorhim. Caphtorhim. I felt that in the gym. I'm like, Caphtorhim. We get the sons of Ham here next. The descendants of Ham are the peoples who populated Africa and the Far East. Cush, apparently this family divided into two branches early. Some founded Babylon, notably Nimrod, and others founded Ethiopia. Mizraim, this was another way the Bible refers to Egypt. Put refers to Libya, the region of North Africa west of Egypt. Canaan refers to the peoples who originally settled the land we today think of as Israel and its surrounding regions. And we get this little aside on Nimrod, that he was a mighty one on the earth, but not in a good way. He ruled over Babel, which was the first organized rebellion of humans against God. And the name Nimrod itself means, let us rebel. And so he very much took on his namesake and organized this first rebellion of humans against God. But we're going to talk about that more later. Verses 15 through 20, we get Canaan. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, the Amorites, and the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathrites. Afterward, the clans of the Canaanites dispersed, and the territory of the Canaanites extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerar as far as Gaza, in the direction of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, as far as Lasha, or Lasha. These are the sons of Ham, by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. Canaan begot Sidon. The family of Sidon, the son of Canaan, went north and is related to the Hittites and the Lebanese. And the Sinite, many people believe that the Oriental peoples descended from the Sinites. Let's continue reading. We're almost through this, and I think I'm doing okay. Here. Verses 21 through 31. To Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth, the children were born. The sons of Shem, Elam, Asher. I spoke too soon. Arpachshad. That's rough. Lud and Aram. The sons of Aram, Uz, Hol, Gether, and Mosh. Arpachshad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. To Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for his days on the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. Joktan fathered Alodad, Shelef, Hazar Maveth, Jarah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Abimel, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. The territory in which they lived extended from Mesha in the direction of Sephar to the hill country of the east. These are the sons of Shem by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. All right. Not that hard. From Shem comes Elam, who was an ancestor of the Persian peoples. Asher was the father of the Assyrians. Lud was the father of the Lydians who lived for a time in Asia Minor, and Aram was the father of Arameans, who we also know as the Syrians. Uz later became a region of Arabia, was named after his son Aram. If Uz sounds familiar, it's because in our sermon series we're going through right now, we're talking about a guy that we know who's from Uz, Job. That's the first thing that's said about him. Job came from the land of Uz. In fact, this guy, where do we get it? Verse 29, we got Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. Some people believe that this Jobab person here is the person that we know as Job. We don't know that for certain, but that's some speculation that is out there. Verse 32, to close out chapter 10. And we can all take a drink of water after this. These are the clans of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies, in their nations, and from these the nations spread abroad on the earth after the flood. Now we know they didn't get very far, because if your Bible has subheadings like my Bible does, you know what's about to happen. Very infamous time in the history of God's people. And now we get to talk about some things that are not just names. Let's read it. Verses 1 through 4 of chapter 11. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." Let me ask you one thing. What did God tell Noah and his sons when they got off the ark? Go be fruitful and multiply and fill the whole earth, right? It's a good thing God made that covenant, that promise to us to never destroy the entire earth again, because, I mean, people are people, and they're always going to be people, and they make these same mistakes over and over and over again. Even like what they're saying here, right? Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Seems very quickly. I mean, quickly meaning hundreds of years, but still. People's eyes have now once again fallen from the Lord. We get distracted, and we come with our own ideas and aspirations and things that we want to do. But let's back up a moment. If we accept the biblical teaching that mankind has a common origin in Adam, then this one language here makes sense, right? Of all the people with the same origin, and so everyone spoke the same language. I don't know if there were accents or dialects of these people, and of course, us being American, obviously they spoke English, right? That just makes sense, because that English today is like the universal language. I don't know what their language sounded like, or what it was, but apparently everyone spoke it. That there was a time when humanity spoke one language instead of the hundreds on the earth that we know of today. And the multiplied descendants from the ark came together to build a great city and a tower in rebellion against God's command to spread over the earth. And so they said, let's make bricks. And they, what does it say? They burned them thoroughly. And then in verse 3, at the end of verse 3, and it says, and they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Does anyone have something else other than bitumen there? Tar, asphalt. You pulling my leg, Mark? Slime. What are you reading from, Mark? The original, the Bible Paul brought over on the Mayflower, of course. The KJV really has slime there? That's interesting. Does anyone else find that interesting? Did you know slime was a biblical word? Now you know. Now, see, the more you know. So, what is this? I mean, as far as their mortar goes, some versions have asphalt, and I don't know. I mean, when my mind thinks of asphalt, I think of the road, right? Like, I think most people would think of, like they had asphalt back in the day. But the idea, asphalt then is not like what we have now. The idea is tar, right? It would be something that was sticky, slimy, right? And would be able to fit into the joints of all of these bricks, and it would have a certain water tight aspect to it. This is the same material that Noah was instructed to build with the ark, of the pitch, right? That was used, and it would be waterproof then. I want us to think about this for a moment. These burned bricks, and then this tar or slime or asphalt that they were using to bond these bricks together. Archaeology tells us that this was the same kind of kiln-fired brick and asphalt construction that was very common in ancient Babylon. So like these materials are not, if you think like this wouldn't be able to be used, think again, because apparently this was a very common type of building construction. But using baked bricks and asphalt for mortar, men built a tower that was both strong and waterproof. Why would that matter? Yeah. I mean, apparently these people, if we are, the Bible is telling us, right, these people rebelled against God and did not do what he told them to do, to go be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Why would we think that they would then believe him? That he promised to never again flood the earth. It needed to be high and tall, stretch up into the heavens, and needed to be waterproof for some reason. The heart and the materials relevant to the Tower of Babel show that it was not only disobedient to God's command to fill the earth, it also shows that man did not believe God's promise to never again flood the earth. These people simply did not trust God. And before we get too high and mighty on our high horse here, talking about these people, we do the same thing. We might look at these people and think how primitive they were and how deluded they were. Like the command isn't that hard. Go, be fruitful, multiply, fill the whole earth. They're like, no, we're going to stick together. But we do the same thing when we forget God's promises and trust only in our ingenuity. So let me ask you this general question here. At times, why is it so difficult to just trust God in what He said? Why is that difficult for us as human beings? Either you individually or us as a race, as a creation. What do you think? Phil?
Get to thinking we're self-sustaining.
Yeah. I did this. Sure. Yeah. Shelby?
Thought, I think we like to see physical something, either like a physical product, something telling us that this is going to happen, and to have faith in something that we can't see can be challenging.
Not having something tangible in front of us, for sure, right? Great example of that is, I think everyone does this to varying degrees. It might just be, very small or very drastic, depending on how you live your life. But just coming into the church's building, coming into here, right? We change how we behave. Whether it's like, I'm not going to tell that story because some people might view it as inappropriate, or the language that I use outside of here, whether with my friends or with my colleagues at work, like you can't cuss in a church building. We're having some youth event here, and someone brought a friend, and their friend said a bad word. I can't remember exactly what they said, but I remember the friend's response where they slapped the guy, and it was like, you can't curse in a church building, man. Why is that? Well, because when we're here, we're present, right? We know what we're doing. We got our Bibles open, and so it's like, all right, we got to do this. But then when we leave, sometimes that very same day or the next day or sometime through the week, we forget because it's not tangible, right? It's like, oh yeah, like that's a thing that I do on Sunday, but it's not here and now, and that's just 7 days or less than 7 days, right? That we kind of lose sight of what we're here to do. Rod?
I was going to say too that they probably have been lied to by their leaders. So
Ooh, poor leadership.
we've never been lied to by a politician.
I've never been lied to by a politician. They all say that they know the truth. Aaron?
To have control too. I mean, our perspective when we get into that mindset of how great God is and how much bigger He is than us.
Yeah. Exactly. Whether it's with our calendars or our planners or our budgets or whatever. I mean, some of us like to have a lot of control in life, and giving up that control and trusting, right? That's the key ingredient in trust. Trusting God is difficult. Any other thoughts? Why is it difficult to trust God at times, Scott?
Actually, I'm thinking a little bit further than this, or I kind of get the feeling that just like the Garden of Eden, God set aside this time to see what would happen. Like you said, He reset the earth. Things had been changed. Lifespans weren't going to be that long, and then He wanted to say, okay, here you go. Here's a simple command. See what you do with it.
Yeah. Let's see if they can follow instructions. Yeah. Just like a father with his kids, right? Let's see what happens. Verses 5 through 9. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people. They have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they purpose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, Let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore, the name of the city was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower. I would imagine this was not like, what we talked about last week in my sermon of a pillar of fire or a tornado or something. Probably more in the what we see later on in the book of Genesis and in the history of God's people before Jesus, where this was more of he came down in the form of a man, and where you read about the angel of the Lord. Perhaps that was the form that he took in coming down to them. But he says that nothing that they purpose to do will be withheld from them. That the potential of fallen man was both terrible and powerful. So these people are they're very creative, and he says, when we think of the horrific accomplishments of evil from men in just our 20th century, the great ability of men and nations is a painful consideration. And he confused their language. Modern linguists know man did not invent language any more than man invented his own circulatory or nervous system. We did not invent language. Most modern linguists believe language is so unique that the only way that they can explain it apart from God is to say that it was part of some unique evolutionary process. And most modern linguists believe all languages come from one original language. Language is so complex because languages exist as whole systems, not as small parts put together, with the exception, I would say, of the English language, because we just kind of take and steal from all of these other languages and mash it together and come up with rules that we then break. We have little sayings to help you remember, but then those don't even work because it's I before E except after and that's what I'm saying. I was like, why do I even learn that rhyme if we're just going to break it? From there, it says, the Lord scattered abroad over the whole face of the earth. Think what it was like for a family to leave the area of Babel and go out on their own for the first time. They would have to look for a suitable place to live. They would have to forage and hunt, live in tents or crude dwellings or caves until they were able to support themselves with agriculture, and people would spread out and spread out and spread out and continue spreading, because that's what God wanted. God wanted them, they needed to fill the whole earth, not just one little section of it. Families would multiply rapidly and develop their own culture and their own distinctive biological and physical characteristics influenced by their environment. And now, the lifespan of people after the flood, and we're about to see this, was less than it was before the flood, but it was still long, right? Like, people were still living a long time. And so, imagine, how fast the population would have spread with someone that, if they were able to have children, twice as long as us or 3 times as long as us. It would happen very quick. And God will begin to make man better, and he will start as he always starts, with a man who will do his will, even if he doesn't do his will perfectly. So let's read the rest of chapter 11. Yes, sir.
I want to mess up somebody's brain, but every time I hear the advertisement for Babel, so you can learn these different languages,
Sure.
I think that's the stupidest name for that company, because Babel means God confused it.
The opposite.
Yeah. So now that I said that, somebody else probably next time they hear it go, that's stupid.
Or maybe they're just being clever, Phil. Maybe they're being clever knowing that, the people that buy those programs are never going to finish them. They're just going to confuse their language. Because we've bought one of those Babel things and don't know where it is. Never finished it. Anyways, Aaron.
I had a question about this verse 6. So when it says, nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. So are you saying that like nothing evil will be impossible for them, or how do you interpret that?
I think that is, when God's looking at these people, and it's like, it might be an indictment on the ingenuity of people, of humans, of looking at, like, they just came up with this idea of, we're going to build a tower into heaven, and they were doing it, right? That that man is, I think that's part of us being created in the image of God, that our God is a creator God, and so we do the same thing. Then when he says that, I don't think he's meaning it literally, that we can do anything we put our minds to, because I know that there are certain things that, as much as your mind you might put towards something, it's still impossible. But we say that you can do anything you put your mind to. That's what we tell our kids, right? Because it's like, man, look at the great creativity that people can have, and the things that people invent today. I think God was talking more about that anything that they put their mind to, they're going to be able to do, which is both a exciting thing and a terrifying thing. If you look at some of the ingenuity, or at least the what do they say? The ends justify the means, right? Like, some of the greatest advancements in human technology come as a result of war, which is kind of messed up, right? Because as we're trying to invent greater ways of destroying each other, ingenuity comes out of that. And I would imagine we know how society works, that, these people, wasn't like we would imagine, everyone was there and everyone was happy. Someone was making the bricks, right? Someone was up there, covered in tar every day for laying these things. And all because of what? The pride or aspirations of one man or group of people.
So,
Before we leave this section, I think that chapters 10 and 11 are an example of man's input in writing the Bible, because these two chapters are actually, the first part of chapter 11 actually happened, I believe, before chapter 10. Because in chapter 10, it talks about each man, a son of Noah, and they spoke their own language.
Yeah.
But then we come to chapter 11, and it says they all were one language. So I believe that the first part of chapter 11 actually happened before what was written in 10. And so this is one of those examples, I believe, that shows that of man's input in the Bible. I think we get so wrapped up in the idea that God said, write this down word for word. And I don't think it happened that way, because man had some involvement in that.
Yeah.
And we can see that in other spots. But I think this is one of those spots.
Yeah, the first half of chapter 11 actually takes place in chapter 10, verse 10, right? The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, talking about Nimrod, right?
So I think that's just one of those things that we can say, there's a man's idea right there.
Yeah, and another great example of Hebrew literature, right? Of like, let me give you the big picture, and then we need to zoom in here and talk about this one thing, but it's already happened as far as what's going on in the grand scheme of things. Let's read. Yes, ma'am.
That just brings to mind, the Bible isn't written in chronological order. And Sandra and I have been reading through the Bible together, and we started out chronologically, and then we went to a plan that's, or not chronologically, and then we went to a plan that's chronologically. And it makes more sense when it's all coupled together like that. So I don't see it as being a difference of what man did in the writing, but we just seem to think that everything has to be chronological, and we need to take it as a writer writing this event. And the other thing that I was thinking of is that it's that pride of man that drives us to bond together to try to almost be like God. And I can't help but think about the World Economic Forum. They're wanting to bring all nations in the world to come together and work together, and I think that is where that evil begins, because we want to become like God, as in the pride of Satan wanting to become people of God.
That's interesting. Almost like not wanting, not looking at God of like, oh, I want to be like God, like what we say in a positive sense, but no, I want to be God. Again, that comes back to the trust and the control and all of those things that we talked about before. In verses 10 through 32, we get the first mention of Abram, or who would later become Abraham. And the book of Genesis covers 2,000 or more years and more than 20 generations of people. And these aren't like our generations, these are super generations, because these people were living an incredibly long time. And yet, it spends almost a third of its text on the life of one man, Abram. Abraham, or Abram, is called a friend of God in James. He's called your friend forever in 2 Chronicles. He's called my friend, talking about God in Isaiah. And Abraham, I think many of us, when we think of Abram or Abraham, we think of his great faith. Men and women in the Bible are famous for many different things. Moses was the great lawgiver. Joshua was a great general. David was a great king, and Elijah was a great prophet. And most of us know that we can never be great in any of those things. We can't be a great lawgiver, king, prophet, general, but we can be friends of God. And that's why I believe not only is the most time spent to this one man, but also why he is a great example for us to follow, because he is a man of great faith, and we're going to start with his story next week. Let's pray, and then we will be dismissed from our class this morning. Dear Heavenly Father, God, thank you so much for this time that we can look into your word, that we can learn from it, that we can grow from it. God, as we think about the Tower of Babel this morning, and think about the pride and arrogance of those people, of our ancestors. God, help us to realize that the same problems that they struggled with back then are the same problems that we struggle with today. God, help us to crush our pride and get rid of our arrogance and come humbly before you. God, please be with us now as we enter into a time of worship, that we do so with open hearts and open minds, and help us to sing out praises to you that you rightly deserve. We love you. It's in your Son's name that I pray. Amen.